here for you. Quality Radio.
We are at the 50th anniversary of Radio Clyde. Now, Radio Clyde had a voice that started all we're talking about, Tony Currie. Tony, welcome to the programme.
Thank you very much. And it's strange to think that it was 50 years ago that I sat in Studio A with Andy Park, and we sweated our way down to 10, 28 and 40 seconds when I pressed the button to play the All Together Now jingle, and then another tape recording of the moderator of the General Assembly of the Church of Scotland, and the Right Reverend Andrew Heron, who wished Radio Clyde all the best and all who sailed in her. I think he thought we were a pirate radio station.
Who knows?
Here we are today at a launching, not of a vessel that will cross the oceans to distant ports, carrying merchandise and the labour of men's hands, but of a vehicle that will bridge the air, carrying into countless homes words and ideas, the products of men's minds. It is our earnest prayer that God will richly bless the good ship Radio Clyde and all who travel with her.
and it was me, and so I was given the task of presenting and producing the opening night, and the curiosity now, with 50 years of hindsight, is that nobody told me what to do. Nobody said, you've got to do this, say this, play that, do that. Nobody said anything. Andy Park said, there you go, it's your show, off you go.
Yeah, and I think, Tony, your background, was it hospital radio you were in?
I had been in hospital radio, but I had also done what nobody told me until about 30 years later was a flagship show on KPFK radio in Los Angeles. Now, KPFK was the most powerful station, still is the most powerful station on the West Coast. It reaches San Francisco. And I used to record a show in Glasgow that went out on tape once a week called the Captain Midnight Show on a Saturday night. And I came on after Betty Thomas, who played Lucille Bates in Hill Street Blues. And I did this show. Nobody ever told me anything about it. They just paid me, which is fine. But nobody told me anything. It was only when I went to the station 30 years later, they said, you realise you were the biggest cult in Los Angeles. And I said, are you sure you've got that spelt right? He said, yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And apparently everybody in LA would tune in on a Saturday night at midnight for my show, which I always started with the immortal words, okay, roll over. And I suspect that quite a few people who I would be quite surprised to have thought about listening were actually listening. But that was where I came from. And then I was at Clyde for a couple of years, went to STV, but carried on doing shows for Clyde. But I mean, Radio Clyde was just the best. No other radio station in the world ever could possibly match Radio Clyde in its early days.
That's true. I mean, the number of people I've been speaking to, and that's what comes across. It was at the start something they thought wouldn't have worked from a commercial point of view, but then suddenly they found out they'd get into this Glasgow spirit, and that's where it tapped into.
Well, also the 3-day week and the television closing down at 10:30 at night didn't do any harm, because people were switching off their tellies at 10:30 and thinking, what do we do now? And they put on the radios and they found Radio Clyde, and once they tuned into it, they stayed tuned into it. And I think that did have quite an effect, to be fair. But also I think the most important thing about it was well managed. Everybody who was in charge, Jimmy Gordon, Andy Park, John Lumsden, Alex Dixon, Peter Elliott, each one of those men knew exactly what they were doing and did it very, very well. And I don't think there was ever a radio station that had quite such a stellar team of management behind it.
It's good to hear that, Tony, but thanks for your time there. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Your voice, your music, Quality Radio.